Shalom and welcome back to the Rashi Nosh. I'm Pastor Matt.
And I'm Kara.
This week's Torah portion is Shalach, sometimes called Shalach Lecha, go for yourself, or send for yourself, rather. It reminds us of Lech Lecha, go for yourself, that God tells Abraham. And we're going to talk about a little bit about the spies and things like that. But this is my bar mitzvah portion, so it's special to me. And we're going to talk about something specific in our Rashi Torah discussion commentary, a section on page 125 called Strings Attached. But before we get into it, please subscribe to this channel if you've not done so already. Like and comment on this video and share it on your social media so it can go out to as many people as possible. So, as I mentioned, we have this commonality with Lech Lecha in Genesis 12, where God tells Abraham to go, but it's not just go, it's go for your own good, go for yourself. The same is true with Shalach Lecha, send for yourself scouts or spies. God did not command that Israel send the 12 spies out. He allowed them to do it. It was their idea. And he was like, do this if this is what you want to do. Now, they should have sent the scouts out and just proved to themselves that what God said was right. And two of the spies, Joshua and Caleb, said, listen, what God said is right, and we can take this land. The other 10 said, yes, what God said is true. It is a good land, but there are giants there. We look like grasshoppers compared to them, all those types of things. But in this particular Torah portion, we also have something very special that happens, a certain mitzvah that is for men. Not every commandment is for everyone. Some commandments in the Torah are for priests, some for Levites, some for Israel, some in the land, some you can't do unless you're in the land, some for men and some for women. And so no one, even though there are 613 mitzvot, commandments in the Torah, no one is required to fulfill all 613, and neither could anyone do it because some are meant for different groups. So this is a command for men, and this section is called Strings Attached. Now, the reason I picked this particular one, in every Torah portion, we have 2 or 3 choices as to what we talk about, but I brought up this one because it relates to me in this way. The expression tie a string around your finger refers to a technique to remind yourself to do something. Before you laugh, sometimes I forget to do things, which is why I use my phone to schedule things and remind myself of things. And then sometimes I'm in the middle of doing something, the reminder goes off and I hit, I need to do that, but I'm in the middle of something right now. Let me snooze that reminder. And then I forget again. So this is why I have a wonderful wife that reminds me of things when I forget. And if you're like me and you like old movies, there was a film that it's probably 60 or 70 years old by now, called The Absent-Minded Professor. And it was about a man who was always forgetful, a professor who was always forgetting things, and he would tie strings around his finger. So anyway, this is an expression in English of a reminder. Tie a string around your finger. So the Torah portion discusses a different type of memory device that also involves a string. It says in Numbers 15:39, that shall be your fringe or tassel. Look at it and recall the commandments of the Lord and observe them, so that you do not follow your heart and your eyes in your lustful urge. So Rashi explains the significance of the word that we have here in Hebrew for this fringe or this tassel called tzitzit. In plural, it's tzitziot. The fringes this is something that one is required to place on the corners of a 4-cornered garment. Again, this is a commandment for men because they got into trouble. They were getting into trouble with their eyes, with their lust. And men are very visual, and we get into trouble with these types of things. And so we need a visual reminder, and this is what God gave the Jewish people as a commandment. Now, normally, I tuck my tassels in. I have what is called a talit katan, a small talit or a small prayer shawl that is kind of like an undershirt. It goes under your outer shirt, and just as a personal thing. Now, if I'm at a Jewish conference and A lot of people are doing this, or if I'm in Israel, since you see a lot of men with their tassels displayed, I don't feel that way about it, and sometimes I'll have my tassels out. If I'm somewhere and Rabbi Shapira has his tassels out, then maybe I'll do it as well. But as a general rule, I tuck them in, and there are many reasons for that we don't have time to get into now. But there's a very famous rabbi called the Arizal that talked about how the Talit Katan, this small prayer shawl, is like the inner dimension, and the Talit Gadol, the prayer shawl that you wear around your shoulders in prayer, that's like the outer dimension. And so he was in the habit of tucking in his tassels. So I have done the opposite today just to have an object lesson. So these fringes are on this garment. It's shaped like a t-shirt, and it has 4 corners. Now, this is what differs in the Hebrew Roots movement and in the Messianic Jewish movement. The commandment is to put these tassels on the 4 corners of your garment, not on belt loops of your trousers or off of your belt. That's not the commandment. It's to be 4 corners of the garment. And this, by the way, is the commandment. The tassel is the commandment, not the garment. The only purpose of the garment is to hold the tassel, because our clothing is round nowadays. It's not like we're wearing a robe with an outer garment that's sort of like a poncho that has a split in it so that there are 4 corners. So this garment that I wear is shaped like a t-shirt, but it actually has snaps on the sides so that it is split. So it actually has 4 corners to it. It's not a rounded garment. All that to explain, that is the tradition that happens with this. When people want to do something in a little more of a Jewish way or a Hebrew way, sometimes they come to this verse and they say, oh, well, I should put tassels on my garments. But we have to ask ourselves, the way that Rabbi Steve Bernstein of blessed memory would say, how do we do it? How do we as a community, a Jewish community, do these commandments? You don't just pick your own way to do a commandment. There's a certain way and a tradition to do it. So anyway, when it says there to recall the commandments of the Lord, that when we see the tassel or the fringe, the tzitzit, then we will remember the commands of the Lord, it is because the numerical value of the word tzitzit is 600. And if you add the 8 threads and the 5 knots that we have in the tassel itself, then we have a total of 613, the number of commandments in the Torah. So when a man wears a garment like this, it is symbolic of them following all the commandments that it's possible for them to follow. So Rashi explains that since the word tzitzit has a numerical value of 613, the equivalent to the number of mitzvot in the Torah, seeing the tzitzit will remind a person to observe the commandments. Another ritual object that serves as a function is a mezuzah, which is affixed on the doorposts of a house to be seen when entering and leaving. It contains verses from the Torah, including the fundamental declaration of the faith, Shema, Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord is one. Now, what's interesting is the tradition is that once you place a mezuzah on your doorpost in your house, when you move, if you move from that place, you don't take it with you. You leave it. And we have some dear friends that moved into a house and there was one on the doorpost. So I thought, oh, wow, this house has a Jewish connection, and it is still there. And I always, as is our tradition in the Jewish way of doing things, kind of, touch it with my fingers and kiss the fingers. You might have seen people do something like that before. These types of things are reminders, whether it's a tzitziot or whether it's the mezuzah. We have these reminders. Something that I love that you do as my wife is you have in various places of the house little cards that have scripture on them. And I'm looking at one right now in our kitchen. I love that. It's like a little reminder of scripture. And that's what these things are too. They're visual reminders that help us to remember the Lord and the things of the Lord throughout our day. And for people like me that are forgetful or tend to be forgetful, these are good reminders. So here are our questions, and we're going to get a little personal, but no more than normal. Name something that you frequently forget or misplace. What reminders might you institute to prevent this from happening? I don't know that you frequently misplace things, but I do. And you normally tell me, like for instance, my keys. Sometimes I'll be looking for my keys. And you have tried to teach me in this way to always put them in the same spot. When I come in the house, always put them in the same spot, and then you know where they're at. Usually what happens is I sit down at the table, or I'm in our bedroom to change, and so I might empty my pockets and put my keys on the dresser or on the table or on the counter in the kitchen or whatever. But you have a good system on doing that. You don't misplace things though, do you?
Not typically. The only thing I sometimes misplace is my phone, because sometimes I'll be on it or do something and I'll walk somewhere and I'll set it down to mess with something, and then I'll walk away, and then so that's the only thing I tend to, because like not just at the end of the day, but like throughout the day. But luckily I have a watch I can ping it and it starts making noise, and I can find it in the closet or in the laundry room or somewhere where I've set it down.
I have heard that noise when you're looking.
Yeah.
So
That's
that's what
pretty
that is.
much, I would say, the only thing that I typically misplace. Because yes, I am particular about doing things in a certain way, and I have a home for everything, so to speak. So
Well, and that makes you not lose things. I think that's great. But
typically.
I would say the main reason that you might misplace your phone isn't because you're a person that misplaces things, but a lot of times ladies' clothing doesn't have pockets. I always am. I'm now more aware that like dresses didn't used to have pockets back in the day. Like as a man, that's not something that I would think of. All
Dresses
of
and
my
shirts.
garments have
And even some
pockets.
dress pants don't have them, or it'll be fake pocket. Like
Right.
what's the point of that?
And I think it's just because the style has normally been that, a lady would have a purse or a
Yeah, you
bag
didn't
and you
need 'em
keep
as
everything
much.
in there. But I really became aware of this a few years ago when you would get a dress or a skirt and you'd say, look, it has pockets, and that I never thought of that. But and you have to always worry about that on Sunday morning as you lead worship, because you have to have a place to put your pack for your ears, for your singing. And so it's something that I never think about because I've always had pockets, but
Never worn dresses.
I've never worn dresses and I never will. But yeah, so here's an interesting other thing here. The Mesilat Yesharim, the Path of Righteousness, written by the 18th century Italian rabbi Moshe Chaim Luzzatto, known as the Ramchal in his abbreviation. He said it's a wonderful book. Have had it for years, and it's a little book, the Path of the Righteous, or sometimes translated the Path of the Just. It's great. But he says in the introduction, I did not write this book to tell you that which you don't know. Rather, I'm only putting it down in book form to remind you of that which you already know. Sometimes we just need to be reminded. And I think that's probably a good thing, even when if you're not a person that misplaces things, or if you don't need a reminder because you're forgetful, sometimes just being reminded of a concept or being reminded of a truth is very good. My wife doesn't forget that I love her, but she likes it when I say it because it's a reminder that feeling is there. And a good advice for husbands out there: say you love your wife, and do
Often.
that often. Say it often. Yes.
Yeah, and it makes me think too, like just once you've read through the scriptures one time, like okay, I've read it now, but you need to be reminded. Like you keep reading it, because it also, depending on the stage of life you're in and the moments that you're in, you're going to be reminded of different aspects of the scripture that pertain to that specific moment and you particularly. So even though this scripture off the top of your head, and if you don't put in place the reminders, then sometimes you know it, but you're not feeling it here because you have to be reminded sometimes.
It's true. It's true. So, do you have those reminders in your life? Do you have those reminders in your home? Maybe you even have some of these Jewish reminders, like a mezuzah on your door. If you don't have one, I think it's a wonderful thing for you to purchase. You could purchase a mezuzah online, and you can even watch Rabbi Shapira here on our YouTube channel affix a mezuzah. I'll never forget when he did one in Africa on a home, and he did one at a Torah center. So you can see how to do that online. There's a proper way to do it. There's a blessing to do it. You can even look online on how to get what's called a kosher cloth, the scroll that goes inside, because there are ones that are not kosher that are made of paper, and ones that are kosher they're actually made of an animal skin. So you can do that, and if you're a man, if you have an issue with your thought life, with issues of immoral or improper thoughts, with lust or something like this, this is definitely one of the aids for helping and dealing with that is the talit katan, is the small talit that has the tassels on them. It's just a reminder. When you see the tassel, then you will remember the commandments of your God and not go after these lusts. What I love it how it says it in this translation, to not follow your heart and eyes in your lustful urge. So if you're going to do that, I mean, the way that I do it, like I said, is I tuck my tassels in. The verse says when you see them. And so there's an argument to be made about the world doesn't have to see them. When you see them, when you're getting dressed, you see them. And so that will give you that reminder. Now, I do want to caution you, though, the way that we do this is if you're going to wear a garment like this, you must have your head covered. That's the tradition. You don't have these tassels that you're wearing without a kippah, a yarmulke, and sometimes even me, I'll have and a lot of people will do this, we'll have a double head covering. You'll have a kippah as a Jewish head covering, and then maybe a hat or a cap on top. But it's always the appropriate thing, if you're going to be wearing these fringes, these tzitziot, to have your head covered. That's the way that we do it as a Jewish community. So just a little word of advice there. But any of these reminders, if you want to have scripture around your house, a mezuzah on your doorpost, maybe you have some Shabbat candlesticks in a cabinet or on your counter as just reminders of we're living this life that is different, and we're people that honor the Lord, and
even all the feasts and festivals would be
absolutely
reminders.
Those are reminders, and it's wonderful that we have these periodic things that we do that are reminders every week with the Shabbat, and then of course in the spring we have these observances, in the fall we have these observances leading up to the High Holy Days. So it's a good thing. We as humans need to be reminded. We need to be reminded, and it's okay to be reminded. And you're not lacking something, or you're not less of a person if you need to be reminded. I need reminders every day, and all of us at some point. And it seems maybe the older we get, the more reminders we need. I'm just throwing that out there. So anyway, thank you so much, as always, for joining us for this very special Torah portion to me. And thank you for your comments and your prayers. Continue to pray with Israel as this war with Iran is still going on, and continue to pray for our ministry partners and friends and family that are there in the land. Continue to pray for them and their safety. They have been living for days in bomb shelters, so please continue to pray for them. And it's good to have a reminder. And if you really want a reminder to pray for the situation in Israel, you can download the app when it will give you an alert when rockets are fired. And it's a wonderful reminder, even the sound of that alert, to remember to pray. I think it's a very good thing. So thank you for joining us. We will see you next week. Shalom.